Hey, James and Mitchell here, and we are about to do a combination type video. It's going to be kind of like a look with the Lenormand as well as an update for a previous video series that I've done. So you're probably wondering, why am I sitting in front of the TV in my house? And so the TV actually is a part of the reason for the video. So back in March, I started doing a video series based on the show Days of Our Lives, which is a soap opera here in the United States, because you may be watching this in another part of the world. And so I have been watching Days of Our Lives for, since I was 18. That's a good 30 years now. So at the time, in my course of my Lenormand studies, I wanted to start working with other people besides always just reading the cards for myself. And I was kind of hesitant about actually working with live people, so I did the next best thing. I started picking characters from TV shows, and so from Days of Our Lives, I chose Will Horton, and at the time, Will was married to his husband, Sonny Kiriakis, and he was having an affair with Paul Narita, who, unbeknownst to Sonny, Sonny didn't know about the affair, but Will didn't know that Paul and Sonny had had a history. So he was sleeping with Sonny's ex. But none of them knew, in the configuration, none of them knew about the other person. It was the craziest thing. But anyway, so I was interested in looking at that to see if the marriage could be saved, what was going to happen. So it consisted of a series of 3 videos, and if you're interested in looking at those, I will post a link to each of the videos in the description box below. But I kind of made some predictions, and they actually did happen along the way. And the final prediction was that Sonny was going to leave town, or leave the marriage. I didn't know at the time he was going to leave town. So what happened was, he not only left town, he left the state, he left the country, he went to Paris. And that didn't happen until August. So so that was that, and I kind of just thought that the series was done. I thought all the predictions that I had made had actually came to pass, and I kind of just left it the way it was. And then a couple of weeks ago, a viewer on my channel named Ray, so if you're watching this, hey Ray, Ray hit me up a couple of weeks ago, and we started having this conversation about what was going to happen to Will now that Sonny was gone. In addition to, behind the scenes, there's been like gossip and speculation that the character of Will Horton was going to be killed off. And it was so funny how the universe works, because I was just looking at that kind of stuff online when Ray's message came my way. It's just so funny how the universe works. And so in that conversation I had with Ray, Ray was interested in seeing if I would be willing to do an update to see, if there was any truth or what the cards had to say about the idea of Will being killed off. So I told him I would do it. And he also reads tarot, so he had told me that he had done a tarot reading about that, so we kind of, talked about the cards that showed up in his reading, so it was very interesting. So I told him I would do it, and I felt inclined to do it sooner than later. It was 2 weeks ago, so I kind of put it off because there were other videos in the pipeline I had to do. But I wanted to do it sooner than later only because now there's been a change in writers, and I don't know if people are as interested in what goes on behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera or the on-screen like I am. I'm very involved in that process. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. And so there's been a change in writers, head writers. And so typically what happens in a change in head writers, at least from my perspective on a soap opera, is that the new head writers start eliminating the characters that they don't like, don't want to write for, that kind of thing. And so, I thought, Will might be on the block in terms of, being phased out. And in addition to that, the writers also started this serial stalker, serial killer storyline. And so 2 people have already been killed off, and they said that there's going to be more down the way. So I'm only going to say this. I don't want to, if you've been watching the show but you haven't been watching lately, I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but the killer has been revealed to the people who are viewing it. Like, the people in town don't know who the real killer is. A person's taking the fall or being set up, but the actual killer has been revealed to the viewer. So we all know, if you're a viewer, we all know who the killer is. And so there's been a situation, a development that has now put Will and the killer in close proximity. And so that kind of set off my little radar going, uh-oh, ding, 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 ding. And in addition to that, Gabby, the mother of Will's child, who was in jail for killing someone, was released from jail. And I'm like, uh-oh. So, you know, I'm seeing like little indications, like there may be something to the truth that Will's character might be killed off. And also there's been speculation that both the characters of Sammy and Sonny are coming back to the show, but each one is only coming for a brief period of time. And so the wheels of my mind start turning, and I start thinking, okay, well, if both characters are coming back for a brief period of time, why? And it could be like, okay, they come back because Will's going to be killed off, going to come to town for the funeral, and then they're going to leave. So that was what my mind was thinking when Ray's message came my way. So I was really intrigued because like I said, I thought the series was done. I was done with it, but it's very interesting how the universe works. So I'm saying all that to say this, is that this video is going to be an updated version, or an update of that reading, just to see where Will's character is. Is there any truth to the idea that he could be killed off? Those kinds of things. So in the next segment, I'm going to show you the deck that we're going to be using for the reading. I'm going to show you the cards that are going to represent Will, Sonny in the drama. And then we're going to, after that, go right into the reading, which is my standard line of 5. You know, I love it. I figure if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we'll move right into that. So, as they say in soap opera language, stay tuned. And here we are. I just wanted to, before we get right into the reading, briefly introduce the deck that's going to be used for the reading, and as well as the cards that are going to represent the players in our drama. So first, the deck we're going to be using is the Malbertu Lenormand. This is a gorgeous deck. I love this deck. I love it for a couple of reasons. Number one, besides it being very beautiful to look at, what I love about it is it has 2 men cards. So usually there's one traditional man card in a deck, but the creator of this deck also included another man card for same-sex couple readings. And this was also the deck that I used when I did the Days of Our Lives readings way back in March. So I'm just being consistent. I figured if I did it then, to kind of keep it, you know, keep some level of consistency, I would use the same deck. So those are the 2 reasons why I'm using this deck. Number one is because it has 2 men cards, and the second one is just to be consistent. And so these are the cards that are going to represent the players in the game. So the last go around when I did these readings, the man card on the left here, this card represented Sonny. And the reason why I chose it is because Sonny has dark hair. And then this card here in the middle, this is the card that I let represent Will. So again, we're going to keep it the same. This is going to be Sonny, this is going to be Will. And then this card here on the end is typically known as the Rider. But in those readings that I did, because at the time we were exploring the idea of the marriage between Sonny and Will, and also the ramifications of his affair, meaning Will's affair, with Paul Narita. And so I let the Rider represent Paul, because if there wasn't another man card in the deck, sometimes the Rider has stood in as the lover of a gay man. And so since Will had a husband, I still let the Rider represent the lover of a gay man because of the affair. So it will be interesting when I do my line of 5 to see if one of these cards, 2 of these cards, or all 3 of these cards show up in the line, because it would represent that particular person. So again, this is Sonny, Will, and Paul. And so now that we've introduced the players in our drama, let's now go to the reading. I'm going to shuffle, cut, and deal the cards, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. And we're back. The cards have been shuffled, cut, and dealt, and we have the line of 5. And so going with the question is, what is going on with the character of Will Horton and what could possibly be coming up for him? And we're going to start with the middle card, because the middle card for me always represents the focus. So the focus card is the whip. So now the whip as a focus card falls in line with the situation that Will is in, because the whip represents conflict and strife. And so it could represent, you know, a fight, an argument, a debate, things of that nature, but it just represents the state of conflict he is in regarding his marriage to Sunny. And so I'm seeing this too as sometimes this card for me can represent like beating oneself up or torturing oneself. So, you know, of course, now that Sunny's gone, this card would suggest that he's in the process of beating himself up. The other thing about the whip, and this is more of a positive slant on it, it could be that we are engaged in a situation in which we're actively trying to work things out and sort things out. So again, this card represents conflict, strife, trying to work things out, trying to sort things out, and the idea of beating oneself up. So now I always start with the card on the left here, because this card for me represents the trigger. So while this is the focus card, the first card represents what's triggering that or what's instigating the need for the question or the situation. And here we have the mice. So now the mice as a trigger represents stress. It represents something that we're worried about. It represents some kind of loss. And it can represent a gradual loss. So that goes in line again. And typically for me, sometimes the cards on the left of the focus card can represent something from the past, and while on the right side represent something from the future. So this card would represent the state of loss that Will has found himself in relation to his marriage to Sunny. I'm seeing that. So now let's look at all the other cards and see what more information that we can get about the situation as it is and as it's going to become, possibly. So next card is the Tower. And then on the other side of the whip we have the Ring. And the last card is the Bear. Okay, so now the first thing that I'm noticing in the cards is that the two cards that I would be looking for in light of the idea, the gossip, the rumor, speculation that Will Horton is going to be killed off on the show, I would be looking for the Scythe and the Coffin, and I don't see either one of those. The Scythe would be a card that would suggest like an accident or injury or some kind of harm. It could represent being hurt. And sometimes too in a painful way. So I would be looking for that, especially if the character was going to be killed off. That would be one way. And then definitely the Coffin, because that would represent the end of the character. So the fact that we don't see either one of these in the line is somewhat suggestive of a positive sign that there is a good likelihood that Will Horton may very well not be going anywhere. He might still be on the canvas, as they say in the soap opera industry, because I spend a lot of time reading things about what goes on behind the scenes. So they call that keeping a character on the canvas. So that would be the other thing. Now, in light of what I just said about that, then I'm going back to the mice in regard to this, because the Tower card, you know, while we kind of take the focus off what's going on in front of the camera and maybe take a look at what's going on behind the scenes, the Tower would represent the industry. That would be, that could be NBC, that could be Days of Our Lives as a company, or the Enterprise, you know, the powers that be here. And also too with the Bear, because the Bear can represent like authority, people in power, people of influence. So it could be that the powers that be, you know, may want to keep Will around, but I'm seeing with the mice as like a loss of screen time, if you will, kind of like they call the people who are, you know, characters that you see more often than not or all the time. They call those front burner characters, and then the characters who they call recurring you know, and you only see them once in a blue moon, or suddenly a character who was front burner all of a sudden is now on the sidelines, and you're wondering what the heck is going on with the character. How come you haven't seen him or her? They call that being put on the back burner. So it could be that the status of Will just changes from being a front burner character, which he has been all this time, to becoming a more back burner character. So I'm seeing this as the gradual loss of screen time, maybe. And even with that, there's always that concern, you know, when I started seeing him less and less and thinking, oh, something's up. There may be something to what's going on, or with the gossip and the rumor mill. There may be some truth to that. So, but going back to Will Horton as a character on the show and what's going on screen, this could be, you know, just the idea of being stressed and worried about the conflict, you know, and the loss that he is suffering as a result of that. The mice would suggest that it's eating away at him or gnawing at him. Okay, so then the Tower is a card that represents things like institutions, something traditional, something official. In this particular case, I'm seeing it as the idea of being isolated and separated, because that's another aspect of the Tower. So if we look at it, we could say, because now keeping in mind with Lenormand being best read in pairs and triplets, that we have the first pair here with the Tower and the mice could be the stress of being separated, the stress of being isolated, you know, that kind of thing with that. So I'm seeing that. But to me, it's about the isolation factor. And of course, because Sonny's gone and Will's in Salem on his own now. So again, touched on the whip being about the conflict and the strife. The ring actually in this line is very positive sign, because it represents marriage, it represents a bond, it represents a union, a commitment, an agreement. So I'm seeing that as a positive sign, especially that it comes after the whip. So, you know, we could look at the pair of the whip and the ring as, you know, a conflict that becomes, you know, a commitment, or, you know, trying to work things out and sort things out about a commitment, a marriage, you know, an agreement. So this is very positive to come after the whip. And also too, with the bear coming after the ring, because like I said, the bear represents strength, it represents power, it represents force. It also represents influence. So I'm seeing the combination as, you know, a powerful agreement, a strong bond, a strong marriage. It could be saying too that if Will and Sonny work things out and sort things out, then there's a great potential for their marriage to become even stronger than it was before. So I'm seeing that that's good. So another thing that we can do is we can look at the pairs, and this is a technique we call mirroring when we're doing Lenormand. So I would look to the inner pair first. So we have the Tower and we have the ring. So that for me represents the institution of marriage, you know, because the Tower is institution and then the ring, of course, is marriage. So it could be also to the agreement for isolation. It could also be a separation agreement. So the idea where Sonny told Will he was leaving Salem, and Will didn't really, I mean, he tried to stop him, but Sonny was kind of adamant. So they did agree to some extent for the separation. But I'm seeing this as the institution of marriage. And so very interesting, if we look at the three cards here with the whip, so let's keep in mind that the whip is all about the conflict. Okay, and so there's something about each side of the conflict. On this side, this could represent Sonny and his need for isolation and separation. You know, I'm seeing it in my head as the idea of like when people say, you know, I just need my space. So I'm seeing this side being Sonny, and then this side being Will, because Will, even though he went about it the wrong way over and over again, because the whip is about repetition, he went about it the wrong way over and over again. He was really wanting to be committed to his marriage, even though going back to the whip, even though he was the one who caused the problems because he had sex not with just one person but with two. Again, the whip represents something repetitive, and it also represents something casual. It wasn't like he was in love with Paul, or he was in love with the person that he slept with when he was in California, when he was writing the screenplay. Just did it. And so, you know, looking at that, because there's a recurring pattern or cycle there, that if Will is going to go with the idea of trying to work things out and sort things out, then this card would suggest, like, why would you continually to engage in that? You know, why did that have to happen again? Because, again, the ring is about something that recurs, something that's a cycle or a pattern. So needing to really look at that, because that's the only way that's really going to help the situation, if he understands why he kept doing that. And also, too, why did he continually be manipulative, trying to make things happen, trying to force something, going with the bear, trying to force something in terms of holding on to Sunny. So I'm seeing that as the conflict there. The next thing we can do is we could look at the outer pair, and we have the mice and we have the bear. So I'm reading that as a loss of power, you know, and the reason why Will did what he did is because he felt powerless, you know, so there's a loss of power there. It could also be, you know, a sense of worry, stress, that actually becomes stronger. So there could be, you know, it could not just lessen, it could become more powerful, more strong over time. So I'm seeing that. Now this, I'm looking at this again. Now this could be an indication of something going on behind the scenes in terms of the actor who plays Will and whether he's actually going to stay or go. The ring would be contract, and so then the tower would be, you know, the company, the production company that produces Days of Our Lives, you know. So the idea here is, like, he could have re-upped his contract or renewed his contract, because those things are something that recurs, you know, they come in cycles, you know, and they decide, you know, if there's going to be a need for the character, you know, and then, you know, get the character to or the actor to renew his or her contract. The other thing about this is that they can go off contract. You know, like I said in the beginning, if he's not going to be a front burner character anymore, then he would be put on recurring status, and then he would be taken off contract. So again, that's just me being the person that I am, and I'm interested in what goes on the screen and also what happens off screen. So I'm seeing that. So it's funny, when I'm looking at the bear and I'm looking at something becoming stronger, I'm hearing that Britney Spears song in my head, Stronger. It's an old song. I'm dating myself, so people who are not familiar with it may need to look it up on YouTube. But I'm hearing that song, and so just the way, it's just the way my intuitive mind works. You know, I just wanted to throw that in there. So that's a positive thing, because the lyrics of the song goes, you know, being stronger than you were yesterday, and so I could see that, you know, overcoming something and becoming stronger as a result in the end. So again, that's a positive sign. So going with the playing cards for more information, I would look to the inner pair first. So we have the Six of Spades and we have the Ace of Clubs, and so that's 7. So the 7th card in the deck is the Snake, and so the Snake is a challenging card. So one of the things that may have to happen here is, I'm going to lay it here so I can see it better. One of the things that has to happen here is that the idea of betrayal, because the Snake can represent betrayal, working through, keeping with the idea that the hidden dynamics always refer to the center card, that one of the things of being trying to work out or sort through would be the idea of betrayal. Now that would be on Sunny's side. For Will, this card represents jealousy, envy, and the threat of a rival. So that would be whatever he is still holding on to, possibly about Paul and Paul's presence in Salem, because Paul's not going to go anywhere now that he has a father there in John Black. He's not going to leave Salem, maybe. So, but I'm seeing that. So that would be some of the things that each person in the relationship or the marriage would have to work through. So that's one aspect. Then we look at the outer cards, and we have the 7 of clubs and the 10 of clubs over here on the bear. So 7 and 10 is 17, and that gives us the stork. And the stork is actually a very good card because it represents change and improvement, and usually a positive change. So now the other thing that could happen with the stork is that this is about moving on. So again, the idea of migration and moving on, because that's what storks do, could be like the character does somehow move on. So let's say Sonny comes back, they work things out, and maybe they all leave Salem together. That could be a possibility, I don't know. But this card would represent some positive change or some form of improvement. So that's very good to see. I'm very pleased with that. So those are the hidden dynamics. The other thing we can do is take all the pip cards and add them all the way across. So we have the 7, we have the 6 with the tower, we have 11 with the whip, we have an ace with the ring, and we have a 10 with the bear, and we have 35. So now 35 is a great card. The 35th card in the deck is the anchor. So the anchor always represents something that is stable, something that is secure, something that's not going anywhere. It's like being anchored in. The other things about the anchor that are very nice is that this card can represent hope. One of the traditional meanings of the anchor has been hope. So this could be a hopeful situation, like for Will not to lose all hope, that all is not lost, going back to the mice, and that it represents persistence and perseverance. So I'm seeing that with the anchor. So, but in terms of like what's going on with Will, this would be a strong indication that the character isn't going anywhere. So I would leave it with that. So seeing that. And then the final thing we can do is we can take the numbers on all the cards, kind of like an essence or a bottom line kind of thing. So we have 23 with the mice, we have 19 with the tower, 11 with the whip, 25 with the ring, and 15 with the bear. That gives us a total of 93. So since there are only 36 cards in the deck, we take the 93 and add the 2 digits together. And 9 and 3 is 12. So now, here's a challenging card. So now we have the birds. So now I'll go with the positive side first. So the positive side of the birds represents a partnership. And so the biggest issue here for Will and Sonny would be communication and conversation. And I think the last time Sonny was mentioned, Will had said that he hadn't heard from him. So again, so there is a communication issue that needs to be worked through. The other thing about the birds is that this can be a card that represents gossip, rumor, speculation, people are talking. So it could be maybe there is some credence to the gossip and the rumors about Will leaving the show. And you know, it's very interesting. Birds, the birds are flying in the air, so it's about taking flight maybe. And so that could be the one card that leads me to believe that maybe there is some level of truth to the idea about Will's character maybe not being on the show. And it could be not that the character gets killed off, but maybe that with the stork that the character for some reason moves away. So I'm seeing that. And that's all the information that I'm seeing with the cards that are here. So again, this has been a line of 5 reading answering the question, what could possibly be going on with the character Will Horton? Will he stay? Will he go? Will he be killed off? Will him and Sonny get back together? Those kinds of things. So wrapping up, looking at the cards again, we have the mice. The mice represents stress, worry, loss over a period of time. The tower represents, you know, the institution, and going with the ring, the institution of marriage. Could also represent, again, the idea of isolation and separation that both parties in the relationship are experiencing, with Sunny being in Paris and Will being in Salem. The whip as the central focus is a card of conflict and strife and trying to work things out and sort things out, and in the process beating oneself up. The ring, great card in the line to see because it represents the commitment, it represents the marriage, it represents the bond, agreement, union, things of that nature. It could also represent a recurring cycle, so it could be like giving it another try. Now I'm hearing in my mind that song The Second Time Around, so I'm hearing that, so there could be, you know, a second go round for Will and Sunny. And then the bear at the end represents something powerful, something becoming stronger, especially with it coming in close proximity to the ring. I'm seeing that as a stronger bond, a stronger marriage, stronger union, things of that nature. So this has been the Lenormand line of 5 for Will Horton as an update to the previous readings that I've done. So I hope if you're a Days watcher, Days viewer, Days fan, that you've enjoyed this. And it will be fun to kind of stay in contact with one another. You could leave me comments on the comment page underneath this video and just kind of like, let's stay connected, let's talk about it, let's kind of compare notes and, you know, share ideas about what we think could happen, where the things could be going. I would love to hear from you. And Ray, if you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed this, and let's have a conversation about it afterwards. Let's kind of put our heads together and share some thoughts and ideas about it. I would love to hear from you again. And that kind of wraps things up. I guess at this point, the only thing we all can do now is just to stay tuned and see what happens. And I look forward to sharing the next video on the next program, whatever that might be in the future, with you. And until then, take care.